What is up, everybody? Welcome to DFS by the Numbers. These are my DraftKings MMA picks for UFC Charlotte. We got Jailton Almeida going against Jairzinho Rozenstruik.
I need all the wins, yeah. All that and all that is. You better move, you might get knocked out. Knocked out. You better move, you might get knocked out. Knocked out. You better move, you might get knocked out. Knocked out.
And we are back talking some DraftKings for UFC Charlotte. We have a 12-fight card. Not the best card in the world, I'd say. Next week's probably even worse, but it's a card. I'm looking forward to it. I will be attending the card live, so it should be fun. I think there's a lot of fun fights, especially on this main card, so I'm looking forward to it. Looking forward to breaking it down, as always, from a DraftKings perspective. Before we get started, if you guys can please leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel. I think we're like 75 subs away from 20K, so almost there. Maybe we can hit it this week. If not, then next week. Be sure to sign up on Underdog Fantasy. Use promo code DFSBTN for a 100% deposit bonus up to $100, and then I'll give my favorite underdog play later in the video as well. But yeah, other than that, going live Friday after the weigh-ins for my Final Thoughts live stream, and then I'll also be doing a Best Bet Friday edition because nobody wants to wake up at like 9 a.m. and do it Saturday. So I'm going to do Best Bet on Friday as well with the Final Thoughts video. So lots going on that Friday there. But yeah, we'll get right into it. And we'll start with these fight doesn't go to decision lines. We have some pretty wild ones this week. I think a couple of these fights are very, very likely to finish inside the distance. Obviously, the one up top, we have Jailton Almeida, Jairzinho Rozenstruik, minus 1,000. Fight doesn't go to decision. I saw on one book, it was like minus 1,600. And yeah, I think this fight not only finishes inside the distance, I think this fight probably does finish under 1.5 rounds. And I think the winner is going to probably find his way on the optimal lineup. We got Jailton Almeida, very expensive though at 9,600. But if he wins, I expect obviously a takedown. Maybe two takedowns, but I think it probably only takes one. He's probably going to rack up some control. He's probably going to rack up some ground and pound, and then he's eventually going to get a first round submission or TKO. So if Jailton Almeida wins, I think he easily surpasses 100 points, and I think he has a solid chance of finding his way on the optimal lineup. Jairzinho Rozenstruik, if he wins, he's going to be optimal. 6,600. As far as like a pump play goes, that's super cheap. He has a ton of power. It's just Jailton Almeida is probably not going to give him many chances. So if Rozenstruik wins, I literally think it's going to be within the first 60 seconds because Jailton Almeida is going to shoot a takedown within the first probably 15 to 20 seconds. So it only takes one shot, and that's kind of how I think Rozenstruik wins. So I'm more so on the Almeida side. I have a ton of Almeida, but Rozenstruik's path to victory is probably a 60-second knockout, honestly. We have Johnny Walker going against Anthony Smith, a fight that I'm going to be very heavily invested on, a fight where I don't have a strong lean one way or another. Johnny Walker, 8,200, and Anthony Smith, 8,000. I just feel like this is a fight that is going to finish, and a fight that at these price tags you're going to want to have. Both of these guys finishers. Both of these guys have over a 90% finish rate. 95% for Walker, 92% for Smith. Both these guys get finished a lot. They have a combined like 19 finished losses between the two. So yeah, I think someone's getting served here. If I had to make a pick, it's probably Johnny Walker. But I'm going to be pretty evenly distributed between the both of these guys, I think. Slightly in Johnny Walker, though. And then Carlos Ulberg going against Igor Peteria. Another fight that I do think finishes inside the distance, in a fight where I'm not really going to be targeting both sides. I don't have much interest in Peteria. I think it's a really good matchup for Carlos Ulberg. He's the second biggest favorite on the card at this point. 9,300, if he wins, I think he should go out there and finish Peteria, and I think he does it probably in the first round. So at 9,300, I don't think he's the worst play. There's actually two guys that like more. Jailton Almeida, and then we'll talk about Carl Williams in a little bit, but I still think Ulberg's definitely up there with a ton of upside this week. So like me some Ulberg. As far as Peteria, don't see myself getting too much of him at all this week. And then finally, we have Natan Levy going against Pete Rodriguez, a fight that I think does finish here. Pete Rodriguez has not been to decision throughout his MMA career. He's not been to the third round, and he's never been to even the second round. He's cutting down to 155 for the first time in his career. I think this fight does finish one way or another, whether it's Pete Rodriguez landing an early knockout, and for that reason, Pete Rodriguez at 7,100 is definitely on play, or it's going to be Natan Levy implementing the wrestling, the grappling, and eventually submitting Pete Rodriguez in that second or third round. So I think this fight does finish. Natan Levy, I think, is very much in play at 9,100 for that grappling and finish upside. But Pete Rodriguez, I think, at 7,100 is going to be a very popular dog, and for a very good reason. If he wins, it's probably a first-round knockout here. All right, getting into our core plays. My favorite plays on the slate, Jailton Almeida He's going to be my highest owned fighter this week. Going to try to get as much as Jailton Almeida and Carl Williams as possible. Talk about Carl Williams in a second. But yeah, I see him taking down Rozenstruik within the first 15 to 20 seconds. If he goes out there and strikes with Rozenstruik, well, he probably gets knocked out. But that's just not his game. He's not going to go out there and strike. He's going to take down Rozenstruik. He's going to get on top. And I think once he does get on top, he's going to have a significant advantage. I think Almeida finishes Rozenstruik in the very first round and puts up a very big score. So love Almeida. Going to have a ton of them this week. Gabe Green, 8,300. Maybe a little bit under the radar play here, but I think Gabe Green in a win scores very well because I think the win is going to include a lot of takedowns. We saw Bryan Battle really throughout his entire career, but especially in his last fight, just struggle against the takedown, struggle with the get-up game. Gabe Green, not the best wrestler in the world, but he can wrestle a little bit. He'll attempt takedowns. BJJ Brown Belt, I think Bryan Battle's been taken down in every single UFC fight thus far. We saw Gilbert Urbina take him down in the first. We saw Tresean Gore take him down. And then obviously we saw the Renat Fakhretdinov fight where Fakhretdinov took him down and controlled him for like 14 minutes and like 15 seconds, like the whole fight. So I think Gabe Green, if he wins this fight, takedowns, volume, don't know if he finishes Bryan Battle, but I think if he gets enough takedowns, he could definitely pay off this price tag. Johnny Walker, 8,200. We talked about it a little bit. I don't have a strong lean on Johnny Walker, but I do lean towards him. I think he's going to be able to keep this fight on the feet. And on the feet, I just think he hits much harder. He's much bigger. He's going to have a 2-inch height advantage, going to have like a 6-inch reach advantage, and he hits much, much harder than Anthony Smith. The chin, of course, is a worry for Johnny Walker, as always. I don't think he's the best chin, but I don't think Anthony Smith has the best power in the world, so I think he'll be all right. But like I said, not much of a strong lean here. I'm going to have plenty of Anthony Smith as well, but this is a fight that is borderline must target at these price tags. And then Carl Williams, 9,400, another expensive guy, but I mean, he's going to be worth it, you got to think. This guy's 9,400, and we saw in Carl Williams' debut, he put up, 129 or 130 in his debut, and he can probably do that here against Chase Sherman. Chase Sherman, terrible takedown defense, an even worse get-up game. It wouldn't shock me if Carl Williams even finished Chase Sherman in this matchup. We saw Alexander Romanov run through Chase Sherman. Jake Collier, of all people, ran through Chase Sherman, submit him in the first round. So yeah, I think Williams gets takedowns and probably finishes Sherman. So yeah, 9,400, going to try to get a ton of Carl Williams. If I had to pick between Almeida and Carl Williams, it might even be Carl Williams just because I think he's going to be a little bit lower owned, but I'm going to try to get as much Carl Williams and Jailton Almeida in my lineups as possible this week. And there's a lot of pump plays that stick out where I think you can do that. GPP plays here, tournament plays, Natan Levy, we touched on him a tad, takedown upside going against Pete Rodriguez, who just had to pull out a couple weeks ago, cutting down to 155 for the first time. What's he going to look like out of the first round? What's he going to look like off his back? We're going to get a lot of questions answered, hopefully, in this fight. Natan Levy showed that he could wrestle, showed that he can go out in the second round and fight, and he showed that he can grapple a little bit. Got a submission win on the Contender Series, and I think if he does get this fight down to the mat, he's going to eventually get Rodriguez out of there. So 9,100, I think he has takedown and finish upside here. Next, we got Alex Morono, 8,800. Alex Morono, I think is going to be very low owned this week, but I think he has some solid upside. Alex Morono, I love the volume that he brings to the table here. Alex Morono is landing around 5.22 significant strikes per minute. He has a lot of power as well, lots of knockdowns throughout the UFC. Not a ton of finishes, but I think the finish is going to be very much on the table here against Tim Means, who at this point is 39 years old. He's approaching 50 fights. I'm not really sure where he's at this point of his career, and I think Morono can potentially get Means out of there at very low ownership as well. So I like some Morono. Not my favorite play in the world, but I think he's a guy that's going to be very low owned with some upside. Carlos Ulberg, 9,300, another guy with upside, another guy with finish upside, a fight that's heavily favored to finish inside the distance. I just don't think Ilir Beteria is UFC caliber. Carlos Ulberg, he's going to be the much better striker. It's not even close. Maybe Ilir Beteria is going to try to grapple him, but I don't see that working out for him. I don't like the striking defense and really anything in general. In terms of Ilir Beteria, I think Ulberg probably gets him out of there in the very first round. So at 9,300, he's most definitely in play. Of course, I do like Carl Williams and Jailton Almeida more than Carlos Ulberg this week just because they have that wrestling upside and first-round upside as well. But, Ulberg, he's going to have first-round upside in his own right, knockdown upside and all that. So I think Ulberg, Williams, and Almeida and even Levy, this 9K range is completely stacked this week. And then finally, Anthony Smith, 8,000. Yeah, I mean, he could knock out Johnny Walker. I think somebody's getting knocked out here. Anthony Smith is going to be the better grappler as well. If this fight was to hit the mat and Anthony Smith was to end up on top, he's going to have a pretty big advantage there. Like I said, I slightly lean Johnny Walker, but I'm going to be very heavily invested in this fight. Forget my exact ownership at the moment, but I do have slightly more Johnny Walker, but I have my fair share of Anthony Smith as well. All right, moving on to Underdog Fantasy, my favorite play of the week. Last week was the first week where it didn't hit. I had the Andrade higher on the takedowns, and yeah, why would she go for takedowns in that fight? She didn't go for any, which sucked, but I really like this play this week. It's Jailton Almeida higher on the fantasy points, 62.55. Basically, if he wins in the first, second, even third round, he's going to pay this off. If Jailton Almeida wins the fight, this is going to hit. This is my favorite play of the week. A minus 500 favorite to win. I like my chances there. If you do want to use this and much more, sign up on Underdog Fantasy. Use the promo code DFSBTN. Really like that Almeida piece right there. I'm going to be putting it in plenty of plays this week. All right, we'll keep moving on then. We have our live dogs, couple here. Douglas Silva de Andrade, 7,700. I think this is a very close fight. Silva de Andrade has very good takedown defense, a very good get-up game. Cody Stamann probably does try to take him down, but I don't see him having success in terms of holding down Silva de Andrade. So yeah, I think it's going to be on the feet, and when it's on the feet, we're going to have Stamann, who's going to have probably more volume, but it's going to be Andrade, who's going to have a 4-inch reach advantage and just much more power, much more finishing upside. If this fight finishes, it's probably because Andrade knocked him out. So yeah, I like the power of Andrade. I like the finishing upside of Andrade. At 7,700, I think he's very much in play this week. Daniel Rodriguez, 7,200. I think he's going to be a pretty popular dog this week, honestly, but for good reason. I just think this is going to be a pretty competitive fight against Ian Gary. Daniel Rodriguez, very tough, very durable, never knocked out in his career. He was actually finished for the first time in his last fight against Neil Magny. Daniel Rodriguez is going to, I don't want to say have finish upside, but if there's a finish in this matchup, I actually do lean towards it being Daniel Rodriguez. I don't like the strike and defense of Ian Gary. I think Rodriguez can land a lot here. Like even in a loss, like in terms of cash, even in a loss, I think Daniel Rodriguez at 7,200 can put up a very respectable score this week. But if he is able to win at 7,200, I think he puts up a pretty solid score. There's tons of volume on the Daniel Rodriguez side. This guy's landing 7.42 significant strikes per minute, which is wild. Because the guy has like 6-7 fights in the UFC. Tainara Lisboa, 7,800. She's actually now the favorite. So at 7,800, I don't hate it. She has a 100% finish rate. Jessica Rose Clark, there's kind of some question marks on really both sides, Lisboa especially, but there's question marks on the Rose Clark side. I mean, she's lost 2 in a row. Where's her head at? She's now 35 years old. Lisboa has a Muay Thai background. She seems to look really solid on tape. It's just Lisboa's fought absolutely nobody. If Lisboa goes out there and beats Jessica Rose Clark, it's going to be her best win by a mile, and it's not even close. It's actually going to be her first win where her opponent has a winning record in Jessica Rose Clark. So the level of competition really sketches me out. These plays never seem to work out, but maybe it does this week, and if it does, it's 7,800. If she's able to go out there and finish Jessica Rose Clark, she's obviously going to put up a big score and probably even break the slate, honestly, because I don't think many people are going to be on this first fight of the night in general. So I'll hesitantly play Lisboa in this matchup. I'm not getting my hopes up too much, but if she does win, it's probably some type of finish, some type of sub, some type of knockout. Jessica Rose Clark finished in her last 2 losses. And then Matt Brown, 7,500. We got 2 guys that are, you got Matt Brown, 42 years old. Court McGee is 38 years old. That's a combined like 80 years old there. Court McGee just coming off of a knockout loss. If Matt Brown wins this fight, it's by finish. Matt Brown actually has a crazy finish rate, like 91% finish rate. And like I said, Court McGee just got knocked out his last fight. Court McGee's now 38. Matt Brown obviously still has a ton of power in his hands. So, I don't have some shots on Matt Brown this week. 7,500, if he wins, it's probably a finish. I don't hate it at all. So going to be taking some Matt Brown. I'd be more inclined to, and I like Court McGee to win the fight, but I'd be more inclined to play Matt Brown at this price tag than Court McGee sitting at 8,700. I don't see McGee with much finish upside, at least early on. Yes, McGee could wrestle, but maybe he doesn't wrestle like he did in the Condit fight. And if he doesn't wrestle, Matt Brown probably knocks him out, or at least wins a decision in terms of the striking. But I do expect McGee probably to go out there and wrestle. All right, and then pump plays, 2 that stick out here. We got Pete Rodriguez, 7,100, 100% finish rate. All of his wins come not only in the first round, but under 1/2 of a round. So, if he wins, it's probably a first-round knockout. Natan Levy, I don't think, is the best fighter in the world. Natan Levy, what's his striking defense? Natan Levy's striking defense, 58%. So yeah, not too bad, but we've seen Levy get hurt before. We've seen him get wobbled, and Pete Rodriguez does crack. So yeah, I don't hate Rodriguez at this price tag. I'm going to be pretty high in this fight in general. I lean Levy to go out there and submit him, but Rodriguez is a guy that seems like it's going to fight for your money. He's going to come forward, and he's going to try to go for that finish. So I do like that. And then Jairzinho Rozenstruik, 6,600, very cheap there, and like I said, his path to victory is probably a 60-second win bonus. If this fight hits the mat at any point in time, he's probably done. I think there's going to be a huge level gap when it comes to the grappling here. Almeida's going to be the much better grappler, and it's not going to be close at all. So, yeah, just looking for that upside in the first round, first 60-second upside. Doubt it happens, but you never know. It's a heavyweight fight. Rozenstruik has the death touch, so we'll see. But, yeah, going to have a ton of Almeida, but not completely ruling out Rozenstruik here, especially at this price tag. All right, and then fades. You guys probably saw it coming. Jiyeon Kim, 8,900. I mean, there's just no way. Maybe on a different slate. I mean, I think she can score okay, but she has no takedown upside, no finishing upside, just a ton of volume, and a lot of that is just going to be misses that aren't going to land. And like I said, maybe on a different slate, I'd consider playing her because nobody's going to play her. But when you have to compete against Carlos Ulberg, Natan Levy, Carl Williams, Jailton Almeida, I just can't quite get there. So I'm going to fade Jiyeon Kim. Don't really see much reason to play her there. But yeah, guys, we did it. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to leave a like. Be sure to subscribe. Be sure to check out Underdog Fantasy. Use the promo code DFSBTN and use that Jailton Almeida higher on the fantasy points. My favorite play of the entire slate. Yeah, guys, best of luck for UFC Charlotte. Should be a good card. Should be a fun card. I think especially from a DraftKings perspective, it's going to be a fun card, but fun card overall. Best of luck. We'll talk to you soon, and good luck. See you.